It also would have been clear to Reynolds, who owns a marketing company, that the cause of Lively's bad press was her decision to hawk liquor and hair care products while promoting a film about domestic violence. 3. Calling a costume sexy. And the Wayfarer parties have gained additional information to plead further facts to support each of their claims against Reynolds, as well as the need to apply California law. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Court of Random Opinion. My name is Neidigh. Last night we read over the latest filing in the Blake Lively vs. Justin Baldoni universe, which was Wayfarer's response in opposition to Ryan Reynolds' motion to dismiss. If you want to hear me go over the full filing, I'll link to last night's video in the description below, but here I'm just going to go over a few things that stood out to me. Right out of the gate, Justin Baldoni's lead attorney Bryan Freedman is quoting Ryan Reynolds, using his own tactics against him. As I'm sure you'll recall, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively have both quoted Justin Baldoni himself in their filings, ripping his words right out of context to try to make something insightful seem like something nefarious. The attorney writes, "I've realized that I'm too big to fail at this point, so I just crush my enemies and drink their blood." Ryan Reynolds, July 12th, 2024. Reynolds pretends that the Wayfarer party's First Amendment complaint fails to set forth any basis for his liability and that he merely acted as a supportive spouse. Not so. In this document, Freedman once again mentions that they could amend their complaint again to more fully incorporate their allegations into the body of the complaint. Here they say that their First Amendment complaint had alleged that at least twice Ryan Reynolds had stated to WME executives, Baldoni's and Wayfarer's talent agency, that Baldoni is a sexual predator, and that by implication, WME was in business with a sexual predator. Reynolds had contacted Danny Greenberg, Baldoni's talent agent, directly, making that first statement on July 15th, 2024, notably just 3 days after the quote we read to open this filing. On the call, Reynolds referred to Baldoni as a deranged predator and warned Greenberg that Baldoni should not attend the film's premiere the next month because no one wants him there. And the second statement was on July 22nd at the Deadpool and Wolverine premiere, when Reynolds told a senior WME executive that by representing Baldoni, WME was doing business with a sexual predator. Freedman writes that these allegations are more than sufficiently specific, identifying the speaker, the listeners, and why, where, and when the statements were made. Given this specificity, it is unclear why Reynolds cites cases involving allegations so threadbare as to admit the time, place, speaker, or listener. Freedman goes on to state Reynolds' defamatory statements are not unactionable opinion. He says a statement of opinion is actionable if implicitly based on undisclosed facts. Here the question is whether a fact finder could conclude the published statements imply a provably false fact. Reynolds' attempt to recast his statements as opinion is belied by context. These statements were statements that at least implied undisclosed facts. All are susceptible to a defamatory meaning, namely that Baldoni had committed egregious sexual offenses that warrant the label of sexual predator. Context also matters. Reynolds made the statements to key WME figures in an effort to force WME to drop Baldoni. Reynolds' argument that his deep disdain for Baldoni precludes a defamatory meaning to his words is illogical. That deep disdain, which Reynolds seems to view as exculpatory, supports an inference of actual malice. Reynolds first argues that the FAC alleges facts that a reasonable observer could well consider predatory. He next argues that a review of extrinsic evidence, specifically Baldoni's book, podcast, and YouTube appearances, are a factual basis for his assertions. Reynolds' first argument collapses upon any scrutiny of the First Amendment complaint. Reynolds points to 1. A conversation Baldoni had with Lively at Sony's direction about her wardrobe choices. 2. A suggestion from the film's intimacy coordinator relayed to Lively by Baldoni, as Lively would not meet her, about the mechanics of a particular intimate scene. 3. Calling a costume sexy. 4. Hiring a Shakespearean-trained actor with an MFA in acting to play a doctor. 5. Jamie Heath, not Baldoni, showing Lively in preparation for a birth scene a single clip from a home birth video depicting Heath's newborn son. 6. Baldoni's purported failure to deny biting and sucking of Lively's lip, which we've now seen in clips that Blake Lively actually did to Justin Baldoni. Even construed in the most uncharitable light, which would be inappropriate here, these admissions do not show Baldoni is a sexual predator. To prove that Baldoni is a sexual predator, Reynolds draws on excerpts from Baldoni's book, YouTube videos, and podcast episodes, none of which are in the FAC. Freedman writes, Reynolds and Lively, along with the Sloan parties, engaged in a coordinated effort to exaggerate benign interactions in service of a false narrative that Lively had been sexually harassed. They did so to instill terror in the Wayfarer parties and leverage it to accumulate power. This accumulation of power depended upon the ability to conjure and exploit ruinous allegations. The allegations were never true, and Reynolds knew full well or did not care whether they were true. Reynolds also knew that the smear campaign narrative was false or acted with reckless disregard for its truth. Along with his co-conspirators, Reynolds got a hold of communications between the Wayfarer parties from Stephanie Jones that disproved the claim the Wayfarer parties had orchestrated a smear campaign. Given that they had these materials, Reynolds, Lively, and the Sloan parties either knew the narrative they later publicized was false, or at best, disregarded evidence. It also would have been clear to Reynolds, who owns a marketing company, that the cause of Lively's bad press was her decision to hawk liquor and hair care products while promoting a film about domestic violence. The FAC further alleges that Reynolds and Lively, who are two of the most powerful stars in the world, demanded through their talent agency, which also represented Wayfarer and Baldoni, that the Wayfarer parties publicly apologize for so-called mistakes during production, or else the gloves would come off. When those coercive demands were refused, the FAC alleges that the gloves came off, and Reynolds, with Lively and Sloan, defamed Baldoni and Wayfarer to destroy their reputations and livelihoods. Because talent agents are typically paid by commission as a percentage of their clients' earnings, it can be fairly inferred from these allegations that WME would fear its own economic harm from attacks on Baldoni and Wayfarer and would be coerced to drop Baldoni and Wayfarer to maintain more profitable relationships with much bigger stars such as Reynolds and Lively, who would generate larger commissions. Here Freedman writes, but causing a third party to cease performance is the same thing as disruption of a contractual relationship which meets the California standard. Freedman writes, here the allegations give rise to an inference that WME was engaged in procuring engagements for the Wayfarer parties, which were reasonably probable to benefit them economically. Indeed, discovery is likely to show that there were specific interested counterparties inquiring with WME to engage the Wayfarer parties. So basically Wayfarer lost out on those engagements because of what Ryan Reynolds said to WME, as WME then, dropped them. Freedman writes that any defects or unartful pleading in the First Amendment complaint can be remedied by amendment, which is freely allowed, and the Wayfarer parties have gained additional information to plead further facts to support each of their claims against Reynolds, as well as the need to apply California law. Alright guys, that's all I got for this one. If you want to see that full filing, again, I'll link to last night's stream in the description in this video below. Other than that, please don't forget to hit the like on this video. Leave a comment below, let me know what you think, and I will see you all soon.